Bhagavan has sent to the studios today Mr. Gene Massey. Mr. Gene has been coming to Bhagavan since the 1980s. He has been a TV commercial director, a documentary maker. He's been in the film industry for more than 40 years. But more importantly, he was pulled to Bhagavan 4 decades ago. And that journey is a very stunning one, very eye-opening one. And since then, he has been very deeply involved with the Sai mission, and even now he's the vice chairman of the California region of Sri Sathya Sai Global Council. He was earlier the president of the Hollywood Sai Center. Plenty of beautiful stories of how Bhagavan has captured his heart. Welcome, Gene.
Well, being raised a Christian for many years, as a boy, I was an acolyte in the church. I lit the candles, I carried the cross and led the choir down the aisle and was baptized in the Episcopal Church. So to be here in Prashanti at Christmas time and speaking in Sai Kulwant Hall, can you imagine how it makes a Christian feel?
Yeah.
And so, but I have very interesting stories to tell. When I first came here, when I first came to the Sai Center in Hollywood in 1980, I walked in and there's a man up there on the wall that's not Jesus. And, you know, I had been taught in Christianity that if you were not saved by Jesus and if he was your Lord and was not your Lord and Savior, then you were not saved. You were in big trouble. So it took me a while to fully accept Swami as a divine being that has come to earth to help humanity. But after many years and seeing countless miracles and seeing so many wonderful service works, it can't help but change your heart and realize that the divinity walked on this earth as such a Sai Baba. One of the things that I talk about is how I believe that Brahman took a body. Brahman is the supreme, absolute, formless, without attributes. And yet, how do you communicate with that entity if it's formless and has no attributes? So it naturally takes a form in order to communicate with humans. And so that's what I've come to realize, that supreme absolute took a body, and that was the body of Satya Sai Baba, the Kali Yuga avatar.
So, you know, as you said, it was very different for you when you actually saw someone else on the wall, worshipped, and now you're so convinced about his divinity. You have given your life in some ways to his mission. So when was the time when this thing really got absolutely settled in your heart that no more doubts, no questions, he is the Brahman, he's the Supreme? How did that happen?
Well, it happened over a period of time. Obviously, I had a number of interviews with Swami over the years. In the first interview, because I came with doubts. In 1988, I came filled with questions. How could this man with the orange robe be God on earth? And so when we had the first interview, Swami referred to the Father. He said several times, and you know, the Father. And that made me realize, yes, the Father. Yeah, Jesus talked about the Father. He even said, I am the Father. The Father and I are one.
One in the end, yeah.
And so that phrase that he used was very, very important to me, that he kept referring to the Father. But over the years, you begin to realize there's so many wonderful stories about Swami. He talks about your mother is in the hospital and you're sitting by her bedside and your mother dies. And you begin to cry because your mother has died. Swami said, if your mother was the body's still there. What is it that you're crying for? And so little stories like that over the years, you begin to realize that we are not the body. And Swami says we're all divine.
Yes.
And that serving our fellow man is the same as serving God. So over the years, you begin reading all the teachings. You hear stories after stories, so many miracles. Even on that first interview, my first trip here.
1988.
In 88.
So when did you see Bhagavan in the Sai Center there? And how did that happen? Like, how did you go to the Sai Center?
Somebody invited me, a lady invited me, said, why don't you come to the Sai Baba Center?
Hollywood.
In Hollywood. And so I said, okay. I'd heard of Swami. As a matter of fact, one of the films that I was developing was in the lab where they were developing Aura of Divinity.
Oh.
And the lab technician said, there's this guy in India that's materializing all these things. It's really fascinating. And I had read a series of books called The Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East, where they talked about things in India being materialized and stuff. So I thought, I want to see that. And so I called up Dick Bach, and I said, I hear you show these movies about Swami. And he said, yes. And so I went to the center, and that's how when someone invited me there, I had wanted to go. So it was fascinating. And in my first trip to the Hollywood Center, it was very awkward. There's a man up there that's not Jesus. There's all these statues on the altar up there. I thought to myself, I hope nobody sees me in here with these people. And yet, Janet Bach started singing bhajans, and I started sobbing.
Oh.
I just started sobbing because it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. It touched my heart. Must have been something from a past life or something, because I just was just so taken with it. And I noticed that they didn't take up a collection. They didn't try to collect money. And they didn't try to sign me up. Are you going to be one of us? Like so many, things will do. So I came back.
So you felt very welcome there.
Felt so welcome. And they talked about the wonderful service projects they were doing. And I came back and began to attend. They had it on Friday nights, and I began to attend for years, the Hollywood Center. And then in '88 was the first time that I went, that I came to Prashanti.
So how did that happen, coming to Puttaparthi?
That was very interesting to me because I'd never been out of the country before.
Oh.
And
so your first trip outside America is to India and to Puttaparthi. Wow.
Yeah. And I stayed in a shed.
Yes.
I walked in, and there was just a cement floor. And I said, well, how do you sleep here? And they said, well, you got to go outside and buy a cot and bedding. And so I did. And then I didn't have time that night. I got here late. And they said, you better go over to the kitchen and get something to eat. And I went in, and there was 4 pots left, and I'd never seen anything. I said, what's that stuff? And the guy was very friendly and accommodating. He says, well, this is samba, and this is rice. And told me
Rest and rice.
Right. And I liked spicy food anyway, so I thought that was fine. But it was quite an interesting experience. And I met, and I actually liked being in the shed because there were many nice people from all over the world.
Wow.
And they didn't have the nice accommodations that they have now. But it was quite an experience. And so now, of course, it's an entirely different world. It's a beautiful place with all the modern conveniences. We've got air conditioning and everything now. So it's quite a wonderful experience, and it's beautiful with all the greenery. And I've heard that it's been raining a lot here, and it's been making the plants and trees grow, and it's just beautiful here.
Yes. Yeah, I think Prashanti is more green than any of the places in and around this entire region, because
when we first came, we sat in the sand.
Yeah.
We used to bring a pillow or a blanket or something to put on the sand and then when they built the Sai Kulwant Hall, I was kind of disappointed. I thought, well, you mean we don't get to sit in the sand anymore? And we used to walk around the mandir in the morning, do Nagar Sankirtan.
Yes, that goes on. Yes, of course.
Yes. Yeah. And we would walk around the place in the sand, and I even found some little pieces of slate that the original mandir was made of, and I took them home with me, and I still have those little pieces of the mandir from the early days.
Wow. Wow. People have sand from those early days, when Swami used to walk, they have collected that sand.
That's right, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember. And there was like 4 lines, if you can imagine that, Did you see it? We used to joke, did you get the first line? No, I got the second line. And so now it's, hundreds of lines.
Oh, yeah.
But it's quite an experience now. And I'm being here at Christmas time with all the Christmas decorations.
Yes.
And that's the thing. That was one of the things that I liked most about the Sai organization, was that it's the unity of all faiths. Even the symbol itself has the symbols of the different religions. And I thought, isn't that wonderful? And now you have festivals for each different faith, here, and celebrate Buddha Purnima and Christmas.
Shivratri and
right.
Purnima. And,
So that's what I really like about it, is that it's bringing all the faiths together.
Yes. So we'll go back to your first interview. 1988, you are in Prashanti for the first time, and even as you're enjoying the shed and the spicy food, you got a chance to be with Swami in the interview room. Tell us that story.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got something that I carry in my wallet.
Oh.
That I got him to bless.
Oh, okay.
This is just a bookmark.
Uh-huh.
It's a little piece of aluminum bookmark.
Uh-huh.
And Indra Devi gave me that.
Oh, Indra Devi.
In 1980, Indra Devi gave me this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, after the interview was over, and everyone was leaving, he materialized some things during the interview, but after the interview was over, I had this bookmark, and I thought, I'll give this to him, maybe he'll turn it into gold or something. Because he was turning things into gold right in front of you. So
You saw that?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So I thought, well, this is a picture of Swami on here.
His wife here, when I am here, is written there, and it's Bhagavan with the idol of Krishna, and very beautiful.
So I handed this to Swami. I didn't say anything. I just handed it to him. And he looked at it like this. And then he took his 2 fingers and he flicked it back at me. And he said, keep it with you. So 5 months later, I was at work and I had to send a package on FedEx. And I had about 10 minutes to make it. And I said to my assistant, put that there. And she imitated me. She said, put that there. And I realized that what Swami had done was he had imitated me 5 months before. And I realized, I went home and I sobbed because I realized that Swami, he had found one of my greatest flaws was the way that I speak to people. And that was so amazing that he knew that about me, and he corrected me in the way that let me think about it for a long time. He let me think about why would Swami speak? Because that's the way I speak to people sometimes. And so that was such a profound experience. And then another time, I was in the Darshan line, and this was in Whitefield. And I was sitting next to Jack Malat, who was a devotee from the Hollywood Center. And on the other side of Jack was a young student. And Swami came by and stopped right in front of us, no more than 6-8 feet away. And he looked at this young man on the other side. He looked like he was looking at the other man on the other side of Jack. And he looked at that boy and he said, "You talk too much." And then he turned back into Sweet Swami and walked on. And I was so shocked that Swami would speak to someone like that. And I felt bad for the boy that he spoke to like that. And I said, "Jack, did you see what Swami said? You talk too much?" And Jack said, "No, I didn't see him say that." And I went over to the boy, and the boy didn't see Swami say that either. Now, when Swami's a few feet away and you're looking right at him, there's no way you can miss that he says something, especially if he looked that mean, right? He was so mean. "You talk too much." And I realized not only did I realize that he was talking to me, but I realized that he can talk to me and that other people don't see it. So it was a profound experience. It made me realize I talk too much, and it also made me realize he's God. He's not. He can make me see something in myself without offending anyone else. So that talk was meant for me. So I've had so many experiences like this. One day in 2006, the Russians, we were putting together a Russian concert, and I was running around all day. I had helped arranged it. We were filming them here and recording them here. We were going to film the whole thing the next day, and we had all these musicians that were going to play, and people were going to talk and everything. And I was so excited. I was thrilled to be doing some service with them, helping them to prepare for their concert. I was just so happy about it and so thrilled to be doing the service. And the next day, Swami came out of his door and he started towards me. And then he stopped and talked to someone. Then he looked back at me and looked away. And then he came a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And finally he came to me and he said, "I saw you yesterday." And then I realized later, I thought, what did he mean, I saw you yesterday? What he meant was, that's what I want to see in people. I want them to be thrilled in doing service. And so that was, the fact that he knew that what I was doing and said that was very, very profound.
Wow. I mean, there is so much of chiseling of your personality, of your ego, the growth of the soul that has happened since you have known him. And I think the Divine Master was at work since the first interview.
Well, that's what Swami's job is the transformation of the heart. I have had so many experiences over the years where, for example, I used to waste money. I had a lot of money at one point. And I would think nothing of spending $500 for dinner with some friends. And I just spent a lot of money. And I had a huge ego because I was a successful commercial director. And I thought I was smart. But Swami had to teach me that, no, that's not the way to be. And so I went around the world filming Sai service activities. I've been to over 20 countries. And I saw people that had a lot of money and what they were doing with it, the service that they were doing with it. And that taught me, this is what you should be doing. You should be helping. And you know, I often tell people, instead of imagine buying a $500 million boat, what you could do with that amount of money, the number of people you could send to college, the number of people you could help, the hospitals you could build with that amount of money. And the joy you would get from that would be so much better than, you know, getting a suntan on a boat in the Caribbean somewhere, you know. So that's, to me, that's what Swami's all about. He wants to have us transform our heart into something that's he really wants us to realize our divinity. And by doing that, he gives us these exercises, these service activities. You know, the boys from Visakhapatnam once asked Swami, what kind of service should we do? And Swami said, when you see something that hurts you to see it, do that service, because that will heal your own heart. You don't do it necessarily to help them. You do it to make your own transformation. Yes, you will help them by doing that, but the real purpose is for us to become divine, and that service is what it's all about.
I mean, Swami always addressed all of us as Divyatma Sarupalara, means embodiments of divine Atma. And, you know, you started getting that message from him right from day one of coming into the fold, that we are not the body and, you know, we are that Atma. And now as Atma, you should feel one with the other, and with that spirit, you must work.
I'll give you an example. In Los Angeles, I was getting gas one day, and a fella came up to me with a handful of corroded batteries. And he said, "Would you like to buy a battery?" And I looked at him and I said, "Are you hungry?" And he said, "Man, I'm so hungry. I haven't had anything to eat for 2 days." And I said, I looked around, I could see there was a fast food place across the street, a Mexican place. I said, "If you go over there, as soon as I finish getting gas, I'll come over there and I'll buy you some food." And he said, "You're really going to do that?" I said, "Yes, I promise. I'm going to come over to the place. I'm going to buy you some food." And so he began walking across the street looking back at me, you know. And so I finished getting the gas and I went over there and I went into this little place with him and I said, "Get anything you want." And he got a couple of burritos and a Coca-Cola. And we came out and he sat down on the curb and I sat down on the curb with him.
Wow.
And he started crying. And I started crying. And I tell people, his name was Derek. And I tell people that if you do that, there's no way you cannot change your heart. That is the transformation that Swami wants to see in us, is do that kind of service. Show someone that kind of love as an exercise to help us learn to be more loving. And that's the thing I like about coming to Prashanti. There's so much love here. Everybody that you see is, Sai Ram, how are you? Nice to see you. And it's just really wonderful. And everybody's involved in some kind of service project, even what you're doing here, you know, in this video thing. Everybody's doing some sort of service to help and to be helping in Swami's mission. And to think that I've been blessed with being involved in Swami's mission and being a cameraman. I've been all over filming Sai service. And of course, that changes you. Yeah. Seeing all those things changes you, changes your heart. You see all these wonderful people helping people that are in trouble or whatever, and feeding people. And you see this great love that they show for them. The medical camps that I've filmed. It's just, it cannot help but make your transformation. And so I'm grateful for Swami have given me the opportunity to be part of his mission. And whatever I can do, it's not much, but whatever I can do is so rewarding because it helps you change you as a person.
And when you look back at your life, you know, what you were in 1980, prior to 1980, and you look back and you look at your life now and reflect on what kind of a person perhaps you could have been or might have been, and how he has reshaped you, remade you. Of course, the journey perhaps was not pleasant all the time, but you are a very, very different person, a person you perhaps never imagined you'll be.
Swami has changed my heart from an arrogant commercial director to just a regular person that is anxious to serve.
And, you know, once the master begins to start chiseling you, when the master begins to start operating on you, sometimes it is not a very pleasant experience, isn't it?
You know, Bob Bazzani tells a story of, he was in the interview room and just telling Swami, things are going so well, this is happening and this is happening and everything's just great. And we want to thank you for all the grace, Swami. And Swami said, well, you know, sometimes I cause trouble. And a few months later, it was exactly the opposite. He lost his business. He got all kinds of personal troubles and lost money and everything. And just things really went bad. But it's an example of how Swami's in complete control of everything. He was so funny. He said, yeah, sometimes I cause trouble.
So that's perhaps an experience that you have to go through for the growth of the soul.
You do. I went through some very tough times, and I'm thankful for them. And even in the worst of the times, I knew, as bad as it was, this is going to be good for me.
So you had that feeling, right?
I had the feeling because I did believe in Swami, and I know that Swami's in control.
Wow.
And I know that no matter what happens, you turn to him. You're going to have, if you look at somebody's astrological chart, you're going to have things go through in your life. You're never going to be on singing zippity doo dah every day. You know, you're going to have tough times. And so if you're with Swami, it makes it easier. He mitigates your karma somewhat, and you can hold on to him, knowing that this is first of all, you're not going to live forever. Right? So you don't need to get too upset about anything, right? Because but knowing that you have Swami to help you, and you say a prayer, and he has helped me in many times. And so even in the toughest of times, I've had the knowledge that Swami is with me, and I can lean on him and he will help me.
And I think when you look back at your journey with Swami, as well as the number of occasions you have had interviews and interactions with Swami, I think when you now reflect, you derive more from what was said or what you experienced, isn't it?
You go back and you think about it, and you think, how could I have been that fortunate? For example, I've been all over the world. I've been to 9 countries in Africa. I've been all over 8 countries in Central and South America. I've been in Malaysia, 5 cities in Australia, New Zealand, Fiji. I filmed Dr. Upadhyaya in Russia.
Doing only Swami's work and seeing Sai glory and Sai Seva.
Well, you know, I have this thing where I say SSS. People say Sri Satya Sai. I say saints in service to Sai, because I've met so many people that are saints. Dr. Upadhyaya, he's a saint. He's the 10,000 people in the world are not blind because of him. You know, and when you see people like all these great devotees, and the people here in the ashram, and so when you see this, it gives you an example of how to live. So everywhere I've been and seeing all these devotees, I go, oh, I see how to live. It's not about a $500 dinner. It's not about having a whole lot of money and showing off and having a fancy car. No, it's about helping and serving your fellow man. So that's what Swami taught me, and that's basically what I'm interested in now. Is, you know, I want to do more films for Swami. I've been all over India. I've been to 21 Indian states, filming Sai schools, Sai service, Sai medical camps, and I want to continue doing that. But it's just so wonderful to be part of his mission.
Oh, yes. So tell us the story of the ring.
That was in an interview in February of 2000. I had brought, here's a good story for you. Here, I brought my friend Carl that I had known since the 4th grade. We went to elementary school together back in Macon, Georgia. And Carl was a bit spiritual, and I told him about Swami. He said, well, I'd like to go over there and see that. And so Carl came to see Swami in 98 with me. We did not get an interview, but Swami looked at us. And Carl saw Swami materializing, vibhuti. And he said, I know how he's doing it. Really? He says, yeah, he's got a bulb under his arm that's got vibhuti in it, and he's got a little tube running down his arm. And so when he goes like this, that squeezes the bulb, and that's what makes the vibhuti come out. I said, Carl, you're out of your mind. He really materializes it, Carl. He really materializes the vibhuti. Carl said, if he did that and did it for real, I'd come here. I'd stay here. I'd never leave. I'd be a devotee for the rest of my life. I would never even leave. I would stay right here if I saw him do that. So Carl and I, in February 2000, they called me and they said, would you like to do a film for the museum? And I knew I was going to get an interview because they wanted me to come talk to Swami about it. And so I said, okay. And so I said, Carl, if you ever want to get an interview, this is going to be it. Why don't you come with me? And so he came with me. And the two of us were treated like royalty. Sit on the veranda, 3 or 4 seats from Swami's door.
Wow.
Swami came out And normally I was the guy that took chits and sat in the back of the hall like everybody else, you know. And here I am, 3 seats from Swami's door, and Swami comes out and goes, "When did you come?" and I look, is he talking to me? So he goes over and he walks us over to us and stands in front of Carl, and he rolls up his sleeve like this. Oh. And he goes like this in front of Carl's face and materializes the vibhuti. And Carl was so shocked. He was completely speechless. And so he got to see that Swami was doing it for real and didn't really have a bulb under his arm to make the vibhuti, you know. And so in that week that we were there, we got 6 interviews.
Oh.
And we would have had 7.
Chaitanya Jyoti blessings.
Yes. And he put us in there. We had interviews with these holy men and everything, and different people coming over. And he would call us in with people and let us see what he was saying to all the holy men and things like that. And then he called the Hollywood Center, came the same time.
Oh, okay.
And it was really funny. And he said, came up to me, and they were all sitting out in the audience, and I was sitting right there on the veranda. And he came over and he says, "Call your people, call your center." So I went to the front. This is before they had the railing, right? So I went to the front of the veranda, and I went like this. And Swami came over and says, "What is this? This is not America." And so he called everybody in the center in, you know, and it was a wonderful experience. But during that period, he said to one boy, "I will see you tomorrow." And Carl and I were making fun of that kid because Swami often would say, "I'll see you tomorrow," and he didn't, and he didn't. But and so I said, "Carl, he's not going to see that guy tomorrow." And we were making fun of the guy because he was kind of an odd-looking guy and didn't look like he had any special qualities that Swami wanted to talk to him about, right? This is how you judge people, by the way, you know. Yeah. So we were making fun of this guy and joking about how Swami's not going to call him. So the next day, Swami calls him in for an interview, and as he's going into the interview with his arm around the kid, he turns and looks at us and he says, "But not you."
Oh my God.
So we learned our lesson. We would have had 7 interviews instead of 6. But anyway, in one of the interviews, he made Carl a ring and me a ring.
Oh, so Carl also got a ring.
Yes,
something to remind him all the time. So did Carl come back?
Unfortunately, Carl died in 2019. He had cancer and passed on. But he had a wonderful experience with Swami before he died. He was my oldest friend. And you know, you start getting old. I'm 76 now. And you start getting older and you think, how much longer am I going to live? You know? And you start making the best of every day. Yeah. But I have no fear of death at all. Some people get so afraid and everything, and I have no fear other than I want to be able to take care of my wife. But I have no fear of death because I know that Swami, whatever happens to me will be Swami's will.
Oh, yes. The first thing that Swami threw it back at you, has wife here when I'm here. You're keeping it in your purse every time. And the message is so clear in that, wife here.
It's almost in my wallet almost for 40 years. Yes. Since 1988.
Yes. And when I look at that picture and I see Swami and Krishna in it, what also occurs to me is Krishna always had the flute. And that's what Swami continuously does to us, right? He just makes you a flute. He just cleanses you, makes you hollow, straight, without any crookedness, and so that you just become empty to become his instrument, right? And I think
that's the idea.
Yeah. All ego just goes.
You know, Jesus said, unless you come to me like a child, you have to erase that ego. Come to me like a little child.
Yeah.
And that's the way to see God, not, I think I know better than you.
It's interesting you mentioned that because, you know, this quotation, wife here when I'm here, Bhagavan gave this to the world on the day Prashanti Nilayam was inaugurated. in 1950, 25th birthday, when Swami stepped into the Prashanti Nilayam for the first time. So Swami threw flower petals from the procession that he was, from the palanquin he was sitting on. So he threw these flower petals, and as these petals fell onto the palms of the devotees, it had transformed into these medallions. On one side was wife here when I'm here. On the other side was Bhagavan's image of how he looked then.
Wow.
Okay, so that's how Prashanti Nilayam came into being. And the first message I feel that Swami gave to the entire world when he gifted Prashanti Nilayam is wife here when I'm here. And you have that. And at the same time, I need to add this. On the occasion of inauguration of Prashanti Nilayam, Swami said, if you stay in Prashanti Nilayam and if you do any sadhana, Prashanti Nilayam will give you the mind of a newborn. And you said, Jesus said, come to me as a child. And Prashanti Nilayam is here to give us the mind of a newborn. And I think that is what Prashanti Nilayam constantly has been doing. And even if you come now, that's the experience, isn't it?
You know, I often think, because I'm making these videos and they are a historical record, we have no real records of Jesus other than what his followers wrote down after the fact. But here we have the words of Swami, and we have videos of him. And so I keep thinking that everything that we're doing, even what we're saying right now, someday, 300 years from now, these materials that we're dealing with in this digital studio, they'll be so valuable. They're like the scrolls of what the scholars wrote down about Jesus. Only this is much more important. And all of these things, these archives of Swami will be so valuable. And they'll want to know something that we said. I'm not anybody important, but they'll want to know the experiences of people like this in history someday. And when we're gone, even, and I keep thinking when I'm filming, filmmakers 500 years from now are thinking, if only they had done this, then we can make holograms out of it or something. You know what I mean?
I know.
I know that the technology would be so different then. Even now, you can take a picture of someone and replicate their voice so that you can make them talk. Imagine what they'll do 500 years from now. They'll make a person be able to stand in the room and talk to you. Things like that, So all of this stuff is fascinating, but we're in a very wonderful point in history where the world is in great trouble now, and that's why Swami came. But this period in history when Swami has come will be looked back on in history.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's no two thoughts about it. But as you were talking about technology and what is possible today, with AI, but at the same time, AI is artificial. It is artificial intelligence. And I always feel that, no matter what AI can do, no matter what it can recreate, it'll always be miles and light years away from SAI, from Sai, because you can't create that experience of being with the divine, because it'll always be artificial. And for that, you have to internalize him. You will have to listen to these stories. You will have to go within, and only then you can recreate that experience, isn't it? And I think whatever we are generating will help people to connect to that Brahman. And I think that's the seva of the media center, and that's what you've been engaged in also.
I would urge everyone to come to Prashanti, and this is the place where Swami's body lies. This is where he started his whole mission, and where he stayed for so many years. I would urge everyone to come here.
I always feel this is the most love-charged place on the planet.
Yes, it is.
Because what other place can be more sacred than the place where the Lord walked, breathed? This air is filled of him. And I think that's the reason why whoever comes to Prashanti Nilayam, they are in front of Sannidhi, and they can't control. Something happens within, So you are coming after
Several years.
several years
Yeah.
now. So you should share about how it felt when you stepped into Prashanti Nilayam this time.
Well, I felt like I was coming home. You know, I feel very welcomed here. I'm always treated so well with so much love. I can't explain it. It's just wonderful to be here.
I think we should thank Swami that he allowed this to happen, and we are really very happy that you are going to speak in Sai Kulwant Hall on the Christmas day. And even before that happens, we got a sneak preview of the way he has touched you, and I think every story is very, very revealing. And every story helps us to connect to him, because we don't know through whom Swami is sending us what message.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Sai Seva